Hype trains! You either love them or hate them. Some people can't resist to jump on when one passes by. And in this video, I'm looking at the Truthear X Crinacle Zero Red in-ear monitors. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. So yeah, this one's been a long time in the making. It's finally arrived. I know you've probably seen a ton of reviews already. I let those guys get their overnight reviews out. I prefer to take my time with things and do it my way. But yes, I've been spending some time with the Zero Red. That is the box. Inside, you get some pretty cool accessories. You get this little carrying pouch. You get a pretty good selection of ear tips, which is always nice to see. 6 pairs of silicone tips in 2 different styles and 1 pair of foams. And you also get an impedance adapter, and I will talk about this a little bit more later on. So here's the cable. It is a little bit disappointing. It tangles very easily. It loves to get tangled, but it doesn't have microphonics or anything, so it performs fairly well, but it's just a little bit annoying to use. Let's have a closer look at these shells now, and there they are. They've got this kind of woven fabric pattern on the front, and they are indeed red, as the name would suggest. 2-pin connectors, just like that. Glossy black shells on the inside. Now, one of the problems that people have had with the original Zero, which I haven't tried by the way, and this one, are these huge nozzles. They're so large, it's even difficult to get ear tips on and off. And for some people, these cause a bit of an issue. Even for my big ears, those extra wide nozzles cause me a little bit of discomfort after a while, and I have to take a break. But they are the shells, not too bad. They're reasonably comfortable, but like I said, those nozzles might cause you some trouble. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten to tell you all the details. First of all, we got a price of $55, so you're in that budget-ish entry-level area. Inside, we've got dual dynamic drivers, so 2 dynamic drivers in each side. Now, before we get into the sound, let me start by saying that these do require a bit extra driving power than your average IEM, so you do need to bump up the volume a bit and give them a bit more juice, especially if you're going to use the adapter, which adds another 10 ohms to the impedance. With all that said, let's throw up the graph. Tuning wise, the Zero Red is fairly neutral with, of course, a sub-bass boost. It's got clear mids and an inoffensive treble tuning. To put it succinctly, Zero Red is focused on clarity and vocal presence, and of course that sub bass. So let's get a bit more into that bass now, and it presents a bit of a mixed experience for me. On one hand, it offers a satisfying rumble and thump, but on the other hand, it possesses this kind of persistent thickness. It's a little bit difficult for me to articulate, but it's kind of as if the upper bass lacks definition, sort of like someone or something has taken a bite out of the upper bass. And then you've got this sort of heavy low end on towards the sub bass. For instance, when listening to kick drums, you encounter like a brief light slam followed by this prolonged and heavy decay. It feels weightier than the initial impact. But despite this aspect, the bass quality itself is commendable. It maintains speed and remains free from distortion, which is one of the big selling points of this IEM. There isn't any noticeable bleeding into the mids, although the upper bass does occasionally get overshadowed by the dominant sub-bass undertones. Nevertheless, considering the price range of this IEMs, the bass is generally of pretty high quality, even if it doesn't suit my personal preferences. And then we've got the mid-range, and the Zero Red excels in the mid-range, delivering clear and vibrant tones. Vocals in particular receive special attention, exhibiting vividness and naturalness. The spacing and tone are well executed, resulting in a smooth yet articulate sound. The mid-range notes have neutral body size, offering good definition and crisp transients. However, some individuals might desire a touch more bite on vocals and electric guitars. Fortunately, there's no shoutiness or uncomfortable resonance in the upper mids. Female vocals are accentuated vividly, while male vocals possess a less chesty quality. And then finally, let's talk about the treble. And the treble boasts a safe tuning that should not trouble even those who are sensitive to high frequencies. There is a slight lift at 8 kHz, enhancing clarity in the mids and adding some snap to snare attacks. However, the treble significantly rolls off beyond that point. And while it maintains a fairly natural timbre, it lacks the airiness and the sparkle that would earn it accolades, at least from me. Nevertheless, the treble provides a respectable level of detail retrieval and a reasonably pleasing tone. When it comes to soundstage and technical performance, the soundstage is reasonably wide, but it has limited depth. The instrument separation and overall resolution are quite good for this price, but the imaging is somewhat indistinct. And detail retrieval is also, it's reasonably solid. It's not great detail retrieval, but again, for the price point, it's reasonable. And now a word on this impedance adapter. And while the inclusion of the adapter is appreciated, well, first of all, let me tell you what it does. It basically lifts that bass shelf just a few decibels, so it gives you an increase in bass. But what it does, it increases that already inherently strong sub bass, and the upper bass doesn't really get pulled up with it. In addition to that, you're lifting the bass, which means that the mids are now they are now less forward than they were before. And on top of that, the treble, which was already laid back and fairly subdued, falls back into the mix even more. So with the impedance adapter, I find the sound even more dull. Well, not even more. I find the sound of the Red a little bit dull. It's not the most exciting or dynamic sounding IEM, but with the impedance adapter attached, it definitely loses what little appeal it has for me at that point. And on top of that, it's not really ideal to have this extra thing dangling around like a dongle when you're on the go. But of course, the inclusion of it is appreciated, even if I think most people will prefer the sound without it. Right, let's do a couple of quick comparisons, and I'll start with the Truthear Hexa here, which costs about $10 more at like $79, I think. It's got one dynamic driver, 3 balanced armatures, and compared to the Zero, Hexa has a more lively and dynamic sound. This is due largely to its upper treble presence, which adds more air and spice to the presentation. In addition, Hexa's bass has comparable extension, but it doesn't overshadow everything like I find the Zero Red's somewhat heavy-handed sub-bass to do. The Hexa has a more natural balance, in my opinion, between the sub and upper bass, contrary to what the graph would suggest, which sort of looks very similar for both of these in terms of bass, but it sounds quite different, believe me. Hexa's mid-range is lighter and more spacious, not necessarily a lot more resolving, but transient attacks are sharper and more defined. In the treble, Hexa actually sounds somewhat bright compared to the Zero Red's subdued and laid back treble. I wouldn't call the Hexa bright, but compared to the Zero Red, it does sound a lot brighter and more energetic in the highs. And despite Hexa having a somewhat narrow soundstage, I find it has more precise imaging in addition to slightly better detail retrieval. And then lastly, just in terms of the build and comfort, I find the Hexa to be a lot more comfortable. I prefer this kind of matte finish to the glossy fingerprint magnets that we got on the Zero Red here. And so which one of these is better? Well, look, I think if you're spending in this range, I would suggest spending that little bit extra to get the Truthear Hexa. I think it is a slightly better IEM. And Now let's bring in another one. Look, there are a whole heap I could have chosen. I could have chosen the Whizzer HEO1. I could have chosen the Moondrop Aria. I thought I'd bring out the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus because they are a little bit underappreciated in my opinion. Great IEM. These come in at the same price as the Hexa, which is like $79. And the T3 Plus here is a single dynamic driver IEM. Now on the graph, the base of these two looks just about identical, but it definitely does not sound that way. Unlike the lingering and shadowy bass of the Zero Red, the T3 Plus offers a more natural balance with its lower mid-range. And the mid-range of the T3 Plus exhibits a greater sense of spaciousness, although it may not be as forward in the mix as the Zero Red. This enhanced separation between the bass and the lower mid-range though on the T3 Plus contributes to a more dynamic presentation. The mids have a slightly brighter tone, and that can be attributed to the T3 Plus's less forward mid-range, and in addition its increased upper treble. This brightness lends the Tin Hi-Fi an added level of clarity and detail compared to the Zero Red, although there's not a lot in it. And then in the treble, the T3 Plus delivers a more energetic performance accompanied by an overall brighter tonality. Its soundstage is wider and deeper, allowing for more precise imaging and more spacing on the stage. On the other hand, the Zero Red exudes a calmer demeanor, but it still boasts comparable resolution to the Tin Hi-Fi. But anyone who is particularly sensitive to treble will probably prefer the Zero Red. And then for non-sound related aspects, I find the T3 Plus shells really a lot more comfortable, and in addition they are a lot less demanding when it comes to power requirements, so they're a lot easier to drive. But anyway, that is the Truthear X Crinacle Zero Red. It's a decent IEM. I don't think it's a game changer. I don't think it quite lives up to all the hype that led up to its release. It's a decent IEM, don't get me wrong. For $55 you're getting a pretty good product. However, for me, it's just another one that is okay. It's above average in its price range. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, especially if you've heard it. Tell me how it sounds to you, and yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it the old thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style, and if you're new to the channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. And until next time, I'll see you later.